This
Except you,
conference
Lindsay,
will
I
now
need you.
be recorded.
Oh, goodbye.
Bye. Except Lindsay, you and me stay on.
Okay.
And let's see, active cameras. Perfect. Get that distracted baby off.
Very cute, baby.
Hello. So, Lindsay, I'm going to just start here with an introduction to EPT. So if somebody watches this later, they kind of know what we're doing.
Okay.
So for anybody who's new or just coming onto this recording, EPT is a completely different approach in emotional health care. Instead of using the typical drugs or the typical therapy, EPT relies on the science of forgiveness. And basically what that looks like in a session is we identify very quickly where the unresolved emotional conflict exists in the person's life, and then we resolve it by walking them through forgiveness statements and helping them and their consciousness to actually resolve and let go of that conflict that is causing either some physical or emotional stress in their life now. So that's what we do. EPT stands for Emotional Polarity Technique. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the forgiveness doctor, and Lindsay is a EPT student. She has done one 6-day training and one progressive, and COVID hit, so it hasn't been, she hasn't done the other yet. She hasn't done the really fun ones. So I'm just going to start by saying thanks. Oh, I want to ask you, Lindsay, you know this is being recorded. Are you okay with that? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, you're okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know, and I'm okay.
All right, right. Okay. All right. So what is it you want to work on?
Oh, I guess maybe just like in general, like can you hear me?
I'm having trouble. It's a little broken up, but try it again. Are you hearing me okay?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I heard you say, can you hear me now?
Okay, you did? Okay, something popped up on my computer and said I may be experiencing network issues.
Okay.
All right. I don't know, I guess just like overall. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we're having some issues. So, I mean, and that's okay because when you do a virtual session, that can always happen. So I'm wondering, we had last week, the lady was also having some connection issues, and she came back in on the phone.
Okay. You want me to try that?
You want to try doing that, and then we might get a better connection?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll just wait for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a phone number?
Huh? Oh, phone number. Oh, that's a good question. Is it on? Let me look in the chat. Does anybody know the phone number? Let's see. I'm gonna chat in here.
All right.
Yeah.
Also, if she closes all apps on her computer,
right,
except for the GoToMeeting,
so if
your computer will run faster.
If you close all the apps except for GoToMeeting, your computer will run faster. That was from Linda.
And then if that doesn't work, I will send it through Messenger like I did the website.
Okay.
So.
Are you trying the deleting all the apps or turning them off?
Yeah, I'm just closing everything.
It's already better.
Okay. You think that's better?
That is way better. That is incredible. See, I should have been able to tell you that. But I don't know if I could actually do that myself. So that's why I turn off all the apps. Oh, what? All right. So what do you want to work on?
I guess just like maybe overall like stress. I have a lot going on right now, so I don't know what my dog is sick, and my boyfriend's getting deployed.
Oh my
and
gosh.
we're just crazy. So,
Are you done with school yet?
no, we got another at least week. Really won't be done until right before I come to you guys on the 5th, on the 10th.
Wow.
So,
So boyfriend that's late.
yeah, well, we just have to figure out next year, and I'm a counselor, so we have to figure out like the schedule and everything for next year and how that's going to look. So,
Oh my gosh. So it's just up in the air and weird.
yeah, yeah,
All right. So, has it been easier or harder?
harder, a lot harder. Yeah,
Oh, ugh. How much
it's hard
time do you
to be a high school counselor via computer.
I know, right? I mean, I have had to, I mean, just the whole notion of helping someone emotionally and having to show up virtually, you can't, it's just, it's a little weird, or a lot weird. So I completely understand. And I've definitely had to rethink EPT. And that's one reason I jumped in and started saying, I'm just going to start doing free sessions and practicing so that everybody can kind of like get their groove down on this so that they don't have to feel like they're stuck with if this happens again, that they can keep rolling forward.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm grateful that you're here. So I'm gonna just go, I'm gonna start with do you have magnets?
I did. You want me to get them? I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay,
Yep.
yeah. 1 second.
Sherry, you're here. You're typing. Thanks. I'm like, wait, who's typing? Yeah. So normally, when we do a remote session or an in-person session, we use magnets in EPT because it provides, we use magnets and we also use this thing, which is, I mean, I use this and I'm actually putting this on my body when I do a remote session because as Lindsay might even notice that when you're doing a remote session of any kind of emotional support to somebody, it drains you. Like there's more going on than just you being with the person. There's all the 5G and all the, the electricity and anybody who doesn't know that impacts us and our physical being is just got their head in the sand. So how it impacts us, I haven't investigated the details of that. I know that there are people around the world who have done that. And so I use this little device, which is a sound therapy machine, and I put it on my, actually on my solar plexus, sort of, my abdomen to kind of ground me and keep me safe and replenished during a remote call, which can actually take a toll on a practitioner. It just does. So anyway, so that's the first thing I'm doing, and we're using magnets. Now I will say this, if Lindsay didn't have any magnets and she was a new client or she was just new to EPT, I could still do EPT with her. It's just that over time, I would highly recommend that she gets some magnets because they're going to give you a lot faster change. So we're going to start with doing North Pole on your head. So we're going to do rapport. So I need you to put both magnets on either side and then squeeze your head together as you breathe in. Breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. And then go the front of your head. Yeah, hold them both on either side. Yeah, and then lift the front and the back on inhalation. Breathe in. Breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. Now, specifically, the body work that's involved there for people who are into that is it's affecting directly a balancing of the pituitary and the pineal, which are both glands inside the brain. So, and it's also balancing right and left hemispheres. So now I'm taking my magnets out, but I'm going to have Lindsay use her magnets because I don't really want to put magnets on me. I'm just going to use my little casings to show her where to put them. And when I'm working with someone who's new to this, by having the video, it allows you to be able to show them where to put it. So I'm going to start by saying how stressed. We're going to do the SUDS, which are, let's see. So you're a 10. It's like chasing your tail. Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't think it'd be 10, but 10. Okay, and then show up, pay attention, tell the truth, let go. That's okay. Stage of healing, 3. Bargain. So stage of healing is 3, and that's bargain. And so what that means is that Lindsay is doing everything she can to hold her life together under the circumstances, which are brand new and weird. And so bargain means, well, maybe if I do it this way, or maybe if I go and I see you running on Instagram, I go and run and run and run, or do some yoga, then it's going to somehow get me out of this weirdness that I'm in. So that would be bargain. So that's where we got that you're in bargain. So it means you're doing a heck of a lot of things just to manage the crisis that is at hand. So after bargain is depression, and depression is where a person just hits the wall. And then after that is acceptance. So what we'd like to do is move Lindsay from bargain through depression to acceptance, and maybe even into creation of new life if we can get that far. So we're just looking to find where internally there's a stuck place. So how many issues to move you from bargain to, oh wait, I wanted to write here. You were good with show up, pay attention. Yeah, I wanted to write the notes there so I remember, and tell the truth. So it's just a level of stress, and she's managing this high level of stress by bargaining in whatever behaviors or foods or whatever she's doing in her relationships to hang on through probably COVID land, because man, this has really brought out a lot in a lot of people. In that sense, I'm kind of thankful. So, I mean, because maybe I would have never found that in myself or in you. So how many issues? 1, 2. So we ask how many issues? 2 issues. The first issue, think of the first issue, and then put your hand on your forehead. You don't have to use a magnet, just, yeah, think of the first issue. All right, so the first issue is, so we're just kind of attuning. You can bring your hand down. So we're just attuning to get her brain in on the story that gives us the unresolved conflict. So the first issue is, think about the first issue, and it's weak. And then I am actually touching places on my body. So the first place I went was to a lung point, and my muscle got strong. So as she thinks of the first issue, it's weak, but then I touch a point and it gets strong. And then I ask the body, is it grief? Yes. Is it Lindsay's grief? So she feels grief about, now I want to ask, like, who? So is it a who or a what? Oh, it's a what. Okay, grief, I'm going to have to write it down. What doesn't show up as much as who? Grief about a what? So is it, I pull out my nice little card, is it money or possessions? It's about possessions, yours, others, house. So this is about, does this make any sense to you?
About a house?
It's about somebody else's house. You feel grief about somebody else's house.
Maybe. My boyfriend just sold his house.
Wait, let me ask, is it, so someone else, is it friend, family, current, original, dad?
Oh,
Dad.
Dad.
So someone else's, but it may be coming up because your boyfriend sold a house.
He sold a house and we're trying to find another house before he leaves. So there's definitely some.
So there is a house going on right now.
There's a house. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though I got to tell you, like, I go muscle testing. When I get into that part of the chart, the what, I'm just like, oh, what? Really? I'm always kind of like, blah, because I can do relationships fast, but I get to what, and I've got to look at my chart. So, so it's someone else's. It's my dad's. Yeah, some grief about dad's house, and I'm going to ask what age. So you could have grief about. Is it grief about? No, it's not even your boyfriend's house. It's just probably tripping you into to a memory. So someone else, it's dad's house, and it's conception to birth, birth to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 12, age 12. When you're 12, you feel grief. Is it your grief or someone else's? It's my grief about dad's house when I'm 12. So do you know why?
No, I mean, like I would have at 12 said that house is my house. I mean, we
Were
lived
they
together.
were they selling the house or anything?
Not when we were 12. No, we were in the same house from 7. We were in the same house for 10 years. So no.
So was there anything else significant going on at age 12?
I mean, it might have been right around the time that 12 or 13 that my grandfather got sick out in Washington. Maybe something happened with my dad's like family home. I don't actually know where my grandfather ultimately ended up moving in with my uncle. I don't know if he was still living in the family home. So maybe around that time they sold the family
Yeah.
house.
I think, yeah, or it may even been just the loss of yeah, where like grandpa had to move in with somebody else, so he wasn't going to be in that house.
Yeah.
So do you know when he died? Did he die when you were 12?
No, he died when I was, it's funny how you don't remember ages, when I was in like 8th or 9th grade. So
That
13
would
or
have been
14.
so that would have been right after age 12.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they were moving him and shuffling him around.
Mm-hmm.
So my grief about dad's house, yeah. So I'm gonna say, is it dad's family? Yeah. And it's when I'm 12, and it's because, oh, I get where maybe, I think. So it's maybe because I feel grief because in dad's house, which would be his family, somebody's dying. Did you know, like grandpa's sick? Was it
Yeah,
his?
he just couldn't take care of himself anymore. So
Right. So that's pretty horrible.
yeah.
And did you know he was dying? Because he died within the next year or two.
I don't really remember. I know he had emphysema and they talked about that. And I know he ended up getting like skin cancer in his ear. But I never talked about him dying until he died. I mean, again, teenage brain, like,
Yeah.
so
So this is my grief about, and it's someone else's house, which is what I
yeah.
got originally, and it's the someone else's dad. It's not your boyfriend, and
Okay.
it's when you're 12, and it has to do with his dad, and I'm thinking my grief is because, I think it's because he couldn't take care of himself. He couldn't live in that house anymore, is my guess. That's as good as I can do.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
he couldn't live. See, what I'm thinking is if your boyfriend is getting deployed, the idea that he could be in a threatening circumstance and never come home could be a real reality.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm thinking we're going back to a scene where someone is being moved out of their house, and because they can't take care of themselves anymore, and then it's all changes.
Yeah.
You know, everything changes, only it's not changing in a good way. It's actually going downhill at this age 12 scene. So someone else, yeah, he couldn't stay dad's house. And so my grief is about my dad's house because his father couldn't stay. And it was, did your dad go out there and help? You
Oh,
don't know.
I know it's terrible. I think at some point he did, but my dad doesn't really talk about things. So if he did go out to help, I might not have even known that's what he was doing.
Right.
So,
And you may have just picked up the emotion.
yeah, yeah.
And he had to have been really, he had to have had a level of distress about it.
I'm sure he did, which probably
You-
meant that he just like worked more. So that probably means I actually didn't see him. I mean, I don't remember, and I did not go to the funeral, so I don't have any like memory of that or like when that occurred. So,
And did you know your grandpa very well?
somewhat, but both my parents are from Washington, so they lived out there and we lived in Ohio and just didn't have money. So like going home for things like my parents would go, but we couldn't all go.
Yeah. So, but you don't remember. Your dad may have gone then, or maybe not.
He probably did go. He has 5 brothers and sisters, and they all. So I'm sure he did go, but like I probably thought he was going to visit my uncle.
But so we have your dad leaving and going somewhere to a kind of dire situation,
Yeah.
which would be, yeah. And why it has to do with house, unless what you heard him talking about was they have to move him out of the house. You
Yeah.
know, maybe that's just the conversation you heard, so that's what got stuck. All right, so he couldn't stay. So I feel grief because about my dad's house because his father couldn't stay. Yeah, I'm gonna write here who I got. His father couldn't stay in the house, and grief because this was happening, my dad left. So was that like would that have been stressful for him to have been gone or normal?
Probably would have been stressed. It probably would have felt stressful at home because my mom would have been there alone.
So it
I don't know.
wasn't, he didn't travel a lot.
He didn't travel a lot. No, but he was at work a lot, but he didn't travel a lot. He always came home at night.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense too. All right. So I feel grief because, yeah, dad's house because he's not here. So that would have been when you were 12. He's not here because he has to go take care of this dire circumstance. And yeah, so I'm thinking, and I feel grief about it. So I'm thinking it's more of a metaphor of my dad's family,
Mhm.
you know, his house and what they were going through at that point in time. And I'm thinking he had all these siblings, so everybody's on edge.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole family is just blah. All right, so think about, yeah, the grief. So now I'm just gonna test, even though, yeah, so it goes over your heart, red, and let's see, and red. So you're gonna put red over your heart, South Pole, and then you're gonna hold red over your forehead like this. And I tell people, I'm gonna have you hold this one over your heart and then squeeze your head. Yeah, reach around. So you're gonna do the squeezing your head. So we're gonna think about your grief at age 12 because of the situation. Your dad had to leave, so that left your mom shorthanded. But he had to go help with a dire situation that was really stressful for him, and he couldn't really talk a lot about it, but we all felt it. So breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in, breathe out. Okay, and then you can take the magnets off. Are there any other emotions? Yes. So I'm looking for another emotion, lost and vulnerable. Is it my dad? My lost and vulnerable. So this one's over, well, it's heart, I just touched. So my lost and vulnerable because when I was 12, my dad had to go out and take care of his family house or his dad's house. The whole family was having a crisis. And so that meant he couldn't be with us. So then our house was in a stress because he wasn't here every night. All right, so I need you to, let's see, wait, red. So the same thing, over the heart and then over here. Had anybody else died for you at age 12?
At that age or just
No,
before?
I mean, like, had you had people die in your life yet?
Just grandma. Just my grandma at that point, my dad's mom.
So this dad, he was the last one. I mean, you know, because grandma was already gone.
Grandma had already passed away like 6 years before, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then my other grandma, everybody was still alive, so.
Okay, so I need you to squeeze your head together, breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in, breathe out. Okay, whew. All right, so are there any other emotions? No. So it's grief, and my loss and vulnerable, and it's because, which kid are you in your family?
In the middle. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
So were you, when dad was not there, did you all have to pitch in?
I mean, we always had to. We were always in charge of chores and stuff. At that age, you know, I was 12, my brother was 11, and my sister was 15. So pretty self-sufficient. We always had to help with chores and stuff.
So was your dad like a great person in the evening, or did he just crash?
He crashed. He had dinner with us, but
so that was kind of what you got from him,
yeah, yeah,
just that evening time.
yeah.
So when it was missing, it was like a big deal because you didn't get him any other time.
Yeah, at that age, I probably was fairly, that's what, you're in 7th, 8th grade. I probably fairly checked out. I spent a lot of time in my room.
Okay.
We had to have family dinner, so I probably was fairly disgruntled about that, though. Yeah,
Well,
so
and family dinner changed when he was gone to help out his family.
yeah.
Or to, because, well, and they may have thought we've got to do something and we need everybody to help. All right, so I need you to say, so, oh wait, is it phase 1, phase 2, heart? So it's heart. So you're gonna rub these points right under your collarbone while we do these statements. So I need you to say, I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that I can't feel the vulnerability and loss
that I can't feel the vulnerability and loss
and grief
and grief
and my dad's anxiety
and my dad's anxiety
at age 12
at age 12
when he had to go home to help his family.
when he had to go home to help his family.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that, wow, that, I love this, that by, I want to say I want to say by holing up in my room, but that's a weird phrase.
that's what I did.
So by holing up in my room
Holding up in my room
at age 12,
at age 12,
I could distract or delay
I could distract or delay
the feelings of grief and loss
the feelings of grief and loss
and vulnerability
and vulnerability
because my dad was gone. Yeah, because my dad was gone
because my dad was gone,
because his family had a really hard crisis.
because his family had a really hard crisis.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that, well, that I can't feel okay
I can't feel okay
at age 12
at age 12
when my dad's not here.
when my dad's not here.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that by hiding out,
that by hiding out,
I don't have to feel
I don't have to feel
the vulnerability and loss
the vulnerability and loss
and grief
and grief
because my grandfather was failing and my dad had to go help.
because my grandfather was failing and my dad had to go help.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that that I couldn't deal with
that I couldn't deal with
the thought that I could lose my dad like he lost his,
the thought that I could lose my dad like he lost his,
or that our family would somehow all change
or that our family would somehow all change
like his family did.
like his family did.
So I just held up in my room.
So I just hold him to my room.
Breathe. Yeah, I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that I can avoid this grief and loss,
that I can avoid this grief and loss,
by isolating myself
by isolating myself
in my own small world
in my own small world
and wait
and wait
until it all gets normal again,
until it all gets normal again,
till my dad is back again,
till my dad is back again.
and then breathe. I forgive myself
I forgive myself
for denying the grief
for denying the grief
and the loss and vulnerability
and the loss and vulnerability
that I couldn't feel
that I couldn't feel
about my dad's family and their crisis,
about my dad's family and their crisis,
because I didn't see them that much.
because I didn't see them that much.
And then breathe. Yeah, I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that, wow, that, what's your boyfriend's name?
Cody.
What is it?
Cody.
Cody. Okay. So I forgive myself for believing that when Cody sold his house
I forgive myself for believing that when Cody sold his house
and he needed to move it, he had to go somewhere else
and he had to go somewhere else
before he had a house.
before he had a house.
I had to feel all of this grief and stress from age 12
I had to feel all this grief and stress from age 12
that I never dealt with
that I never dealt with
because people in my family didn't talk about stuff.
because people in my family didn't talk about stuff.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing I don't know how to talk about things that bother me.
I forgive myself for believing I don't know how to talk about things that bother me.
And then breathe. Yeah, I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that, wow, that I can feel better about the things I can't control in my life
that I can feel better about the things I can't control in my life.
if I could just get people to talk about what bothers them.
If I could just get people to talk about what bothers them,
And then all of this will go away.
all this will go away.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that that I can resolve this emotional conflict
that I can resolve this emotional conflict
of nobody talking about what was happening
of nobody talking about what was happening
and how we should think about it or feel about it
and how we should think about it and feel about it
or what we were thinking about it.
or what we were thinking about it.
I forgive myself for believing that I can make myself feel better about the way we managed these things in my family.
I forgive myself for thinking that
I can make myself feel better
feel better by managing the things
about the way that my family managed crisis by not really discussing it.
manage crisis without really discussing it.
By helping other people talk about what they don't get to talk about.
By helping other people get to talk about what they don't get to
talk about in their family, what bothers them. Yeah. And then breathe. Wow. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing
that I have to be good at getting other people to talk about what bothers them.
I have to be good about getting other people to talk about what bothers them.
So that I don't feel this great loss in my family.
This great loss in my family.
Yeah, the loss of being able to hear how my dad feels about this.
The loss of being able to hear how my dad feels about this.
Or being able to even talk about my fears.
or even being able to talk about my fears.
And instead having to just roll forward like everything's okay all the time.
Instead of just having to roll forward like everything's okay all the time.
And then breathe. Oh, that feels better. Oh, so I forgive my dad and mom
I forgive my dad and mom
for believing that rolling forward like everything's fine even when it's not.
for rolling forward like everything's fine even when it's really not.
And not concerning themselves with what I might be going through.
Not concerning themselves with what I may be going through.
And me not even being able to say it.
And me not even being able to say it.
Because everybody just rolls forward with no conversation.
Because everybody just rolls forward with no conversation.
Leaving me with a lot of conflicts and questions and anxieties and fears.
Leaving me with a lot of
questions,
conflicts, anxiety, and fears.
That nobody ever answers.
That no one ever answers.
And then breathe. I forgive my family.
I forgive my family.
For not realizing or knowing.
For not realizing or knowing.
How this model.
How this model.
Of rolling forward with, and everything's always okay, gonna be okay.
Rolling forward and acting like everything's going to be okay.
Without checking in with people.
Without checking in with people.
Has really packed a lot of anxiety in my life for no reason.
Has really packed a lot of anxiety in my life for no reason.
So that when changes happen. I am a jumble of anxiety and known and unknown fears.
I'm a jumble of anxiety and known and unknown fears.
And often that anxiety has no basis. Because it never occurred to me. That I packed it in to follow the code of my family. That when crisis happens, just pretend like everything's okay. And don't be honest about what you're afraid of. Or how scared you might feel. Because it might rock the boat. Oh yeah. I give my 12-year-old self permission. To accept. I understand exactly how you feel. I understand all your fears. I understand your anxiety about what's going to happen. I understand your fear about saying what you're afraid of. I even understand your fear about saying what is going to happen. And your fear about questioning what mom and dad might be doing. And your fear that it might impact you, but it'll be too late when you find out. And I forgive my 12-year-old self. For rebelling from this and managing it by holding up in her room. I forgive my 12-year-old self for rebelling against this and managing the crisis, the anxiety. Managing the anxiety and holding up in my room. Yeah, I forgive her. For believing. That that's the best strategy she could have. And then breathe. Wow. I love and accept myself,
I love and accept myself,
even though
even though
this model of avoiding conversations about real feelings and fears,
this model of avoiding real
avoiding conversations
and fears
about real fears and feelings has I want to say has a side effect of storing massive anxiety over nothing in my body.
has a side effect of storing massive anxiety over nothing in my body.
And then I critically or harshly judge myself
And then I harshly judge myself
because I haven't realized where it came from.
because I haven't realized where it came from.
And then breathe. So I forgive myself for harshly judging myself,
I forgive myself for harshly judging myself
for the physical manifestation of anxiety and stress
for the physical manifestation of anxiety and stress
that that just built up over time in my body
that just built up over time in my body
because I was trained not to deal with my fears and my feelings or even burden anyone with that.
because I was trained not to deal with my feelings
And fears,
and fears and not to burden anybody with dealing with that.
right, and then breathe. Oh, that felt good too. So I say yes
I say yes
to this load of anxiety in my body
to this load of anxiety in my body
that built up,
that built up
over time
over time
because of fears I had to deny and ignore.
because of fears I had to deny and ignore.
And because I had to pretend I was happy.
And because I had to pretend I was happy
And that I wasn't afraid.
and that I wasn't afraid.
So that I would fit into my family
So that I would fit into my family
and I wouldn't burden them more.
and I wouldn't burden them more.
I say yes to all of this anxiety that is stored all over the place.
I say yes to this anxiety that's stored all over the place
Because because that's what I did to be a good family member.
because that's what I did to be a good family member.
And I call it all up.
And I call it all up.
All this anxiety about fears I couldn't express,
All this anxiety about fears I couldn't express.
and the anxiety because I may have harshly judged my parents for not allowing it.
And the anxiety that I may
might,
have judged my parents for not allowing it.
yeah, that I would have thoughts like that about such nice people. And
that I have thoughts about such nice people.
I call it all up, all of this anxiety. It's just a ball of energy.
I call it all up, all this anxiety. It's just a ball of energy.
And I release it.
And I release it.
From my body, mind, and spirit.
From my body, mind, and spirit.
To God's love and mercy.
To God's love and mercy.
And then breathe. I ask God.
I ask God.
To fill this space.
To fill this space.
With the feelings of love and security.
With the feelings of love and security.
And reconciliation.
And reconciliation.
With my mom and dad.
With my mom and dad.
And myself.
And myself.
And every person I love.
And every person I love.
Yeah, I get to be connected.
I get to be connected.
To those I love.
To those I love.
Without chronically tapping into the anxiety of the fears that were never dealt with.
without
But
chronically tapping into the anxiety over the fears that were never dealt with.
that my dad's gonna die.
That my dad's gonna die.
My mom's gonna die.
Mom's gonna die.
All us kids will have to figure it out.
Everybody will have to figure it out.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna talk about it. It's all gonna be okay. Yeah. And breathe in. I give my 12-year-old self permission
I give my 12-year-old self permission
to come out of that room,
to come out of that room,
to be free,
to be free,
to love and connect
to be free to love and connect
at an even higher level
at an even higher level
than just making space for people to talk about what they're afraid of.
at a
Then
higher
just
level
make,
than
yeah,
making space for people to just talk about what they're afraid of.
right. That I can actually connect at a much higher level.
That I can actually connect on a much higher level.
Giving, out of love, giving people space
Out of love, giving people space
to talk about what they're afraid of
to talk about what they're afraid of
without that being the fix for my anxiety.
without that being the fix for my anxiety.
I actually get to enjoy this.
I actually get to enjoy this.
And I have a much greater impact on those people.
And I have a much greater impact on those people.
And then breathe. Wow. So do you have anything running through your head?
No, I mean, I think the statements resonate in the sense of kind of what I do, where I kind of like tend to like stress out or even not necessarily check out, but I don't like to always talk about what's going on because it might bring those things to like realness. But then I get frustrated when I can't talk about them.
Right.
I kind of wait for people to come to me and ask me how I feel, which doesn't always happen.
Right. You're in that room.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's my life, but a lot of the people in my life don't necessarily always openly share either. So I think my family has definitely gotten better. I wouldn't say they're great with it, but I find it playing out a little bit with Cody and I too. So, or even just like the stress of kind of wanting to always know how he feels and taking that on sometimes because he doesn't share what he feels.
Well, and I feel like that, like my first thought about that was that you actually find some relief getting people to talk about what nobody would get you to talk about.
Yeah.
Like that's what I wanted. So I'm giving that to others as a way of trying to make myself feel better. And what I wanted was, you're fantastic at doing that, but I don't want it to have that ulterior motive that I have to do this to make something in me go away. That's what I feel like the high stress is, that you're like it wears you out in a way, because, well, it doesn't, it actually frees you. So it becomes more of an addiction, like I know that's my go-to to take away the anxiety, because I can start to feel like whatever I needed as a child is now being given.
Yeah.
And you've gotten really good at it, which means now you get to do it even better and enjoy it even more. So I'm going to check the subjective units of distress on just overall stress. Oh, that went to a 2. Does it feel any different?
I feel, I always feel better after I do these.
Yes. Well, had you ever realized, the other big aha that I think I thought is, I don't know a whole lot about you, but my thought was, she must deal a lot with anxiety. That was what was in my head, but I don't know that. And my thought was that you stored a lot of unfinished, like you can be anxious about things. And I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but I felt like you stored a lot of anxiety because you couldn't, I'm sorry, what? You're going like weird again.
You keep cutting out a little bit.
Okay. So
Okay. I don't know
what
why.
were you gonna say?
I feel like I have a lot. I don't feel like anxious a lot. I worry a lot, which I know is a
Oh,
form
okay.
of anxiety, but
That,
I don't
yes,
like feel anxious. I just worry about,
it's like
and
more in your head.
I want something solved so I don't have to worry.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Or I play it
That would
out, like I
be
play out
that.
what's going to happen and I worry about it. Mhm.
Right. So the anxiety isn't internal
Yeah,
here,
it
it's here.
really,
It's where I'm just overthinking.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
and I'm
All the-
thinking that, yeah, I feel like that blob of energy was the result of you trying to figure out things that your family didn't talk about when you were a kid.
Mhm.
So you kind of had to get in your own head to do that, or you had to feel a level of unknown. I don't know because I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I felt like some of that level of stress that goes on with you should actually get better. Let's see, stage of healing. Oh, I got to acceptance. I'll take acceptance.
Yes, I will too.
I'll take it. Yeah. So stage 5, acceptance. And let's see. Oh, well, I could like see, can we take it a little higher? Yeah. Another issue. Yeah. Friend, family, current, original. Dad again. Man, I want the boyfriend and your dog to come up, but it's not coming up. So it's dad and it's grief. And is it dad's grief, my grief? And it's, so if you had grief about your dad now, what would it be?
Um, I mean, just not seeing him. He had surgery right before this all happened on March 4th, so I've only seen
Oh,
him a couple times. He's definitely taking quarantine very seriously. So,
well, and I'm thinking, yeah, so you haven't seen him and you normally can. And
I
you're,
saw him on Mother's Day, so it's been a few days, but I saw him on Mother's Day and I've seen him probably like 3 or 4 times since this all happened.
wow, so that could be another trigger, your boyfriend leaving, you won't be able to, you can't see him, so to speak. And then grief because your dad is also, so my grief with dad, because I mean, it's gonna be, I can't see him works, or my grief because he could be sick. Like, is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, he's okay. I think again, it doesn't that worry. I just worry like with all this time of not seeing people that something's going to happen and we're going to say, oh, we didn't get to see each other because we were locked in our houses.
Oh,
um,
okay. Grief. I mean, I muscle tested that because I can't see him kind of thing. Like I can't just go see him. I've not been able to see him. So my grief, and that's part of that worry. And I'm thinking the same thing. All this stress was happening with age 12, 10 to 15, 10, 11. Yeah, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20. This is actually age 31, but I can't see him. How old are you?
43.
Okay, you know what? I was like thinking, she's not even 31. I'm getting 31. Okay. So do you
Yeah.
have any idea? This is my grief, and it's grief with self, with dad at age 31. But yeah, so do you have any idea?
That's a little bit more recent in my life. So that would have been 2007, 2008. Um, I mean, I think there's probably been an ongoing grief with just not like having a lot to connect with my dad on. As I've gotten older, he has definitely tried.
Right.
But um,
So is it like he's not available for me like I would like?
yeah, we just don't have the kind of relationship that like, I mean, I know he loves me. He'll check in on me, but he never calls to chat or, you know, I mean, I know he's
Yeah,
proud of me, but there's not any like, hey, Linz, what's up? Like, what's
right.
going on or what's new or
Because he doesn't know how to do it.
no, not unless there's a commonality. Like, you know, I don't golf. I don't, you know, at that point, up until then, we had been running, but it was probably around then that my dad had to quit running. probably a few years before that, but right around 31.
So it may be that you lost your commonality then?
Yeah, probably that at least the one thing that we could kind of connect on, or
So I can't see, so it's my grief with dad because there's not it doesn't feel like there's a very good connection there.
yeah.
So I can't see him. So the connection is like weak or fragile. So,
Yeah.
all right. So grief. Okay. So put red on your right lung and red on your forehead. And then this is age 31. And this would be, I mean, I did run with him, but then he had to stop running. So breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in, breathe out. All right. Are there any other emotions? No. All right, so it's still like the grief thing. So I need, and is it phase 1, phase 2? Oh, goody, this is phase 2. So you're gonna tap on your head. And I mean, it's easier than holding those magnets up there when we're doing this. So I need you to say, I forgive. This means you just check out, but I think he maybe checks out. So I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
that I can't love my dad
that I can't love my dad
without feeling grief
without feeling grief,
because he doesn't make an easy connection,
because he doesn't make an easy connection,
because I don't feel like I matter that much to him.
because I don't feel like I matter that much to him.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for holding on
I forgive myself for holding on
to a connection to my dad that never existed.
to a connection to my dad that never existed.
One that I imagined.
One that I imagined.
That he doesn't know how to make.
That he doesn't know how to make.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing
That when I lost the running connection with him,
that when I lost the running connection with him,
and now and in the last month I haven't been able to see him,
now the last month I haven't been able to see him,
that every time I lose something like that,
that every time I lose something like that,
I have to feel the grief
that I have to feel the grief
that I don't know if he's ever really been there for me.
that I don't know if he's ever really been there for me.
Like I don't feel like he makes a connection.
That I don't feel like he makes a connection.
That I have to have something like running.
That I have to have something like running.
And when that goes away, there's nothing.
And when that goes away, there's nothing.
And then breathe. I forgive my dad.
I forgive my dad
For not knowing how to be emotionally close to me.
for not knowing how to be emotionally close to me.
And then breathe. I forgive myself.
I forgive myself
For not knowing how to be emotionally close to my dad.
for not knowing how to be emotionally close to my dad.
And then breathe. I forgive myself for believing when I lose Cody.
I forgive myself for believing that when I lose Cody,
Connection, like closeness to Cody,
closeness to Cody,
I'll be left with that grief about my dad.
that I'll be left with that grief about my dad.
And then breathe. I ask God
I ask God
to release
to release
the walls
the walls
that my dad and I have between us.
that the walls that my dad and I have between us,
To just tear them down
to just tear them down
and to flow the energy of love
and to flow the energy of love
more than I ever imagined or knew
more than I ever imagined or knew
between me and my dad.
between me and my dad.
And then breathe. Without this pattern,
Without this pattern,
I don't have to change my dad
I don't have to change my dad
or have something in common with him
or have something in common with him
besides our genes,
besides our genes,
to feel connected
to feel connected
and in love
and in love
and grateful
and grateful
that he's my dad
that he's my dad
and that I know him
and that I know him
and that he loves me.
and that he loves me.
And then breathe. Without this pattern,
Without this pattern,
I don't have to structure my life in a way
I don't have to structure my life in a way
to avoid this grief and separation from my dad
to avoid this grief and separation from my dad
that I've never really fully understood,
that I've never really fully understood,
but it makes me very sad.
but it makes me very sad.
And then breathe. I let go of the relationship
I let go of the relationship
that I wished I had with my dad,
that I wish I had with my dad,
and that opens massive space
and that opens massive space
for me to feel grateful
for me to feel grateful
and in love
and in love
with all that my dad is able to give.
with all that my dad is able to give.
And then breathe. Okay, so
Hold your hands up there.
that was lovely. Okay, so we're gonna do stage of healing. Now I got to 7. And let's see, feels better. Boyfriend deploy, he's gonna go away. It's like his missingness, you're like fine, but you think too much about what could happen and all of that. But your thinking is an avoidance of actually feeling this loss that you perceived between you and your dad. I mean, that you hoped for, something you thought should have been. And so your mind is so looking for that thing that isn't even real or ever happened, that it's missing all that you have sitting in front of you. And so you like put in the obsessing, or you put in, which I had called anxiety, but, or you put in the closeness of my boyfriend, but now he's going away and it's bringing it up again, this thing that never felt right.
Yeah.
So that should feel better.
Yeah.
That'll be good. And your dad's going to be better. So, SUDs, is, okay, SUDS went to 0 on that one too. Yay, and it's 4:03. I thought we had 10 minutes, I can squeeze a little more out. And I don't know if you have any other questions or if you have anything.
I feel good. Thank you. That's awesome.
Good, thank you. And I will send you an email with the script of this and the video, and it'll end up somewhere on the EPT page. But there's a lot of them on there right now. We're over 20 now of these we've done. So anyway, and hopefully, and they'll go on the practitioner page for learning. And you're going to be at the class at my house, right? It's the bougie EPT class. And I'm pretty sure it's full, but progressive isn't full yet. So anyway, but the other one is. All right, I will see you. I'm going to turn off my recording, and